Is GPT-5 really as bad as people say? This zero-shot Space Invaders clone is one of the most professional demos I've ever seen. It generated this entire functioning Photoshop with a built-in image generator. The agentic capabilities are excellent, even in complex apps. Can I really do all of this? Let's dive in and take a look. In my last video, I tested GPT-5 against other state-of-the-art models for creating apps. All of the apps were created in the Eidolon's app editor with different models selected. Ultimately, the results were less than impressive. A lot of stuff didn't work. And then there was this example that was supposed to be a text-to-speech playground, but all it was a slider. But there was one result, which was this Space Invaders game that really blew me away. This was the best, most beautiful Space Invaders game that any of the models created by a wide margin. And it was so impressive, in fact, that it was enough to make me want to investigate deeper and see exactly what was going on. And the fact of the matter is, my underwhelming results seemed consistent with a lot of the criticism that's out there about GPT-5 right now. So the first thing I did is I just had a conversation with it about what was going on with this text-to-speech playground. I showed it an image of what was happening, and basically what it told me was, and I'm paraphrasing here, the environment that loads these apps had just never seen anything as complex as what GPT-5 was giving me. And because of that, it didn't know how to render it correctly. So once it understood that, it changed the way that it writes apps just a little bit. And once it did that, I got this. Okay, and just quickly, I want to show you what we're comparing to here. Okay, here are all the results from the previous video, and here is the result that the baseline of O3 and Gemini gave us. And there's definitely something to be said about the simplicity of this. This is a fully working text-to-speech playground, and I'll just play this here.
Hello world, welcome to the text-to-speech playground.
Thank you, Charlotte. All right, and then GLM just completely failed at the task. Opus succeeded. The result is pretty similar to the baseline. The baseline hid the advanced settings in an expander, and I actually kind of prefer that. But everything still works here. All right, and now let's just take a look at GPT-5 once I actually got it to work. So it did the minimum of giving me the text area to type the text that I want to generate here. I can choose the voice, but look, it gives me a search. So I can actually type in here and it automatically updates the voice dropdown. So I didn't even ask for that, I just got that for free. Okay, it also gives me this language dropdown, which by default it's auto detect. And this is cool, it gives me all of these convenience buttons here so that I can change it to common languages, I suppose. Okay, it still gives me my advanced settings drop down, but then look at this. It actually gives me a history so that I can see all of the generations I've done so far. Okay, so that made it load in the output here.
Hello world.
Hello, Charlotte. She can apparently also speak French.
Bonjour. Comment ça va aujourd'hui?
Wow. And Chinese.
Konnichiwa. Suteki na kinmitsu ni narimasu you ni.
Wow, that is definitely not Chinese. Okay, sorry. So I guess the first thing that I want to say about GPT-5 is that it is extremely ambitious. The apps that you generate will be of a higher complexity than what you'll get from any other model. Now, maybe you don't actually want that. Maybe you just want the simple version of this, and maybe this is actually all you need. And that's perfectly fine. And if you want this, then there's no reason to use GPT-5 for this. Okay, now while we're on this topic, I just want to revisit some of these renders of Space Invaders, and I'm going to show you some of the renders that I got when I was just playing around off camera. All right, so the baseline gave me Chroma Invaders, and Chroma Invaders is a damn respectable remake of Space Invaders. All right, we've got this nice glow effect, the squares change sizes, right? Like it tried to make it visually appealing, and it's pretty good. All right, so that's our baseline. It was actually Gemini that did that render. All right, then we got this one that was created by, I don't actually remember which one made this, but it is just pure insanity. The twist, they flip the world game upside down, or the game world upside down, okay? And then like this happens, and like, okay, and then nothing happens ever again here. One thing that's kind of funny is Opus is kind of known as being the peace-loving hippie of the state-of-the-art models. So all of its Space Invader games were peace protectors and space harmony. So this is one that I didn't show in the last video. And here we have to, I think we're supposed to break the asteroids that are hitting the aliens so that the asteroids don't kill them. But I don't know how I'm supposed to do that with the aliens in the way. So like I'm losing points as the aliens die. And then some of the aliens are getting mad and turning against me. So that's cute. Then we had this space harmony. All right. And there's a lot going on here. The gameplay is nice. It's pretty satisfying. There's a lot of colors. You know, you look at a game like this and it's like, all right, this is a pretty good result. Okay. But then we turn to the GPT-5 renders. And here's the one that I showed in my last video. And you look at this and this is just qualitatively different from any of the other results. But I feel like this is the first one that I've shown that really feels like an actual game, right? Like it feels like something you might actually download and play on your phone or something like that. The other ones look like toys, like they were impressive for what they were. This one is actually genuinely pretty and genuinely fun to play. This is the first one that is an actual game. Okay, now here's the one that I didn't show. And this one, I actually rescued it from my server logs as I was trying to figure out how to get GPT to even work. But what's interesting about this one is it's the only one that actually has sound. And once again, this looks like a professionally made game. This looks like something that you might actually play. This doesn't feel like just a toy example the way that the other ones did. And I want to be clear, it's definitely quirky. It definitely makes mistakes. It's still AI. It's still an LLM. It's prone to all of the problems that LLMs have. But I wanted to test this theory a little bit more about how GPT-5 handles complexity. So I have this little app here, and to be clear, this app was not made with GPT-5. This app was something that I vibe coded several months ago when Gemini 2.5 first came out. All right, and when I made it, I went through multiple rounds, many iterations. The first 10 rounds of it was maybe just getting the physics of the fish to flow really smoothly, and then I had it follow the cursor, and then I added these ripples, and then the rocks, and then the food. And eventually the code hit a point of complexity that was so high that Gemini was no longer able to continue iterating on it. All right, this is a very complex app, and honestly, I have no idea how it even works. I vibe coded the entire thing. So what I did is I brought it into Eidolons, and I gave all of the models one single prompt. I told them, make the rocks and the food more visually complex and prettier. All right, so let me show you how they did. This is GLM's attempt. The food looks pretty much the same. I think they might have added a little bit of blur, and these rocks, wow, I don't know what happened there, but that is, you know, they were going for something. All right, then we have our baseline. This was actually O3 that did this work, and what happened is nothing. So the game locked up. I tried to give it several chances to fix its problems, but in this case, O3 was a fail. Then I gave it to Opus. All right, so with Opus, we now have these glowing food pellets, and we have these more visually interesting rocks. I don't know that I love the way that the rocks look or the way that the food pellets look, but this is definitely a better result than GLM gave us, and it managed to do it without breaking it. All right, so giving the same prompt to GPT-5 with this Zenfish app that I vibe coded several months ago. Here's the result. All right, so for the food pellets, we've got these little star shapes. They're rotating and pulsating. We've got our regular food pellets. They're also pulsating. Then we've got this other star shape. It's actually doing a few different things. And the rocks, there's not much going on there, but they added this nice shadow to it and a little bit of texture on the front. And it might be a matter of personal preference, but I think that this actually looks a little bit better than what Opus gave us. And guys, by the way, if you want me to release any of these so that you can play with them, let me know down in the comments. All right, so there's one more thing that I wanted to show you, and that is my AI photo lab. Okay, so my prompt here is create an app that is like an image generator mixed with Photoshop. So the user can generate an image, and then they have all of the Photoshop tools to edit. Then they can save it to their assets or download it. Make sure it fits in a single viewport. I want layers, filters, effects, all the editing tools, the whole 9 yards. All right, so this thing spat out a lot of code. I think we got up to 1,500 lines of code. And just to be clear here, this did not happen in a single try. I had to go back and forth with it. When it didn't work correctly, I had to give it screenshots. It took me maybe 10 rounds back and forth to really get what I wanted. And also, just to be clear what I'm talking about when I say assets, in Eidolons, all of your image, audio, and video generations all get saved to your assets. All right, so part of the test for this was to see whether or not it would be able to properly integrate into the Eidolon's system. All right, so let's take a look at what we got in full screen mode, and here it is. Now, it's still not perfect. If I end up releasing this as a built-in app, there's some other stuff that I would want to fix. Like for instance, when I click here, it changes the canvas size, but let's look at what works. All right, so we have our paintbrush. We've got an erase tool. We've got the fill bucket text. We'll add the text hello, and it looks like it didn't actually add the text. So it looks like there's still some work to be done. All right, but I can create shapes. All right, I can move a layer around. Okay, I've also got layers over here, and I can turn off and on visibility. All right, and then I have the image generator built in. So I can say a giant bodybuilder riding a tiny bicycle. Click generate, and okay, that is actually a regular sized bicycle. That was not what I was going for, but it just put this in as another layer, and I can actually move these around. So if it's important that my other scribbles are on top, I can do that. By the way, I also have this eyedropper, which is also functional, so I can paint with the colors of the image that I just created. Oh, by the way, it indeed does work such that if I draw on this and then I click save, it will actually save it to my assets. So like I said, if I were going to actually release this, then I would definitely want to work on it some more, but you can at least see the power here. Hopefully this gives you some ideas in terms of just what's possible for creating your own bespoke AI apps. You can put these tools together in creative ways and create value in ways that people haven't even thought of before. And by the way, if that's something that's interesting to you, create and monetize your own apps. Eidolons makes it extremely easy to not only create apps, but then export them into your own WordPress site. It'll manage the authentication, all of the credits. You can use whatever e-commerce solution you want, so you can get your ideas up and running and making money. All right, guys, hope you found this useful. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.